Hello all and welcome back to Random Librarian here on YouTube. Today I thought we would do something a little different. I've never done a reading vlog before, but I'm not even 2 chapters into Megan Angelo's Followers, which is going to be published on January 14th, so coming up really soon. And I feel like I already have so much to say about this book. It is sucking me right in. This is... Okay, so it opens in the part of the book that is in the future. The idea behind this is that our main character in like the present, Orla, she wants to write like the next great novel. I already find her super relatable because she has like big fish in a little pond syndrome, and then she moves to New York and suddenly like she's not the best writer, and she has all of her teachers and like people who cared about her growing up and like cheered her on reaching out and being like, I can't wait to see what you do next. And she's just there like, oh, I'm blogging in New York and like I'm trying to slog my way through a novel, but I have so many distractions. And it's just like, I find it so relatable. So there's Orla, who's in like the normal area, and she, in like the recognizable time period of today, she is doing all of that and she wants to do big things. She's blogging about celebrities for an online magazine. And then we have 35 years later, there is a like closed city in California somewhere, and celebrities are decided by the government and they are just always on. And we have Marlowe, who is our main lady there, and she is who opens the book. So we have Marlowe, she's like running from somebody, we don't know who. It's very mysterious, but there's a couple of points that I just want to like point out in this first section because I thought A, they were really, really well written, and B, I am so intrigued. So on the very first page, she goes to like pick a lock with a hairpin, bobby pin, and she remembers someone teaching her, and she's like, why do you know how to do this? Because he's kind of the same level of famous as her and like had the same upbringing kind of thing. And he says, I like exploiting the flaws in things, Ellis had answered, and Marlowe, 22 and in a hopeful phase, had laughed and let the omen sail high over her head. Which, how great is that for foreshadowing? Oh my god, it gave me chills. Like, as first page, I lost it. And then she gets into this person's apartment. She finds these like sheets of paper, and apparently paper is like no longer used 35 years in the future, and there's writing on it, and she's just like looking at it like, is this English? I don't know. And then the last line of it was that like as someone's coming in behind her and she's like trying to appear very strong, very like impenetrable, very unknockdownable, I guess. And the last line is, just as the door started out of its frame, the word for the language the letter was written in came back to her. Cursive. I think it's already like, those are very small instances, but the world building already feels there. Like, that's 2051, Marlowe, who's in New York City. And then chapter 1, we have Orla, who's also in New York City, but it's 2015. And there's the part that I was telling you about how she feels kind of stuck in her life. So she says the frustrating part of it, writing a book she wasn't really writing, was that she had been good at this once, when she was young. Orla would spend her afternoons curled over the electric typewriter that sat on her bedroom carpet, her shins beneath her and still encased in the blue Nice socks she wore to school. She didn't have time to change. She was filled with urgent, grotesque tragedies, like the one about the murderous lunch lady who ground her child victims into the taco meat, or the one about the baseball player killed by a wild pitch, a fastball that orphaned his 9 frilly named daughters. She was prolific. There was one main difference between writing now and writing when she was in 2nd grade. Back then, she didn't own screens. Now, whenever a sentence of hers unfurled into something awkward or just never began at all, she gave up. She let her eyes jump from her drab Word document to the brighter planes of her phone and TV. Suddenly it would be 1 a.m. and she would be tapping out half-dream run-ons into her manuscript if she was lucky, Facebook if she wasn't. And then she has all of those people like reaching out to her being like, what are you gonna do? Like, I'm really looking forward to hearing more from you, kind of thing. And she said, not that it was their prophecies that haunted her. No, it was Danny's. That was all part of the pressure too, a part that grew strangely as the years since she had last seen him counted up. Orla thought that perhaps she was striking a bargain with herself. If the whole world wasn't meant to believe she was special, then maybe just him thinking it would be enough. So we haven't met Danny yet, but that is a lot of pressure already on him, and I'm really excited about it. Then we have just the way she describes being a roommate and living in a city in this next part is so good. So her roommate is Florence, and she basically is a night creature. She only wakes up in the afternoon to get ready, then she goes out all night and goes to different, I'm assuming different clubs and things because it's New York and you can do that, whereas in Boston everything shuts down at like 1 a.m. if you're lucky. Whereas Orla lives the normal like 9 to 5 life. So she says the apartment was dense with new silence in the mornings, at least between the banshee wails of the fire trucks racing up 8th. Though she was the one who had lived there for years, Orla found herself trying not to wake Florence up. She watched the morning news on mute, let her hair air dry, and started picking up coffee after she left instead of grinding beans in the kitchen. Orla told herself that it was better for her brain to have quiet, that her damp waves helped her cool in the underground heat of the August subways, that holding a paper coffee cup as she marched into her day was the New York thing to do anyway. But this was just what she did, and she knew it. Orla had always been the sort of person who let brazen classmates borrow her clothes, the sort of person who said sorry, sorry when someone ran into them on the street, the sort of person who could not speak up at the lady-ish team building tapas, who let her colleagues order awful things, octopus and duck, then failed to secure any carbs for herself. Orla hated tapas. She hated so much about food in New York. 6 inches of meat in the sandwiches, block-long lines for mutant pastries, the way people talked about chefs as if they knew them intimately. Most of all, Orla hated brunch, how it went on all day, pulling everyone out of their apartments and dumping them on the sidewalk, making her seem glaringly alone as she passed by with her solitary bagel. Basically, there's already so many things that I'm just like, I need to talk about this. So we're just gonna do a vlog style of me reading this, whether it's just today or over the course of the week. But I am so sucked in already. And oh, her boss's name is Ingrid, so like that's a very fun thing just to see my name on this page whenever the boss comes up. So far, she seems like an okay boss. She gives Orla like bonuses and things. So like, maybe I won't end up feeling shame for sharing this name with this person, but we will see about that, and I'll be back in a bit to tell you what happens in the next part. Oh my god. I think at the end of the... because it's coming out so soon and I don't want to like spoil things, I think I might insert at the beginning or at the end some kind of like spoiler-free review. We'll see. Anyways, see you guys in a bit. Alright people, so as I mentioned, we are going to be talking about Followers, the debut novel from Megan Angelo today. This is going to be a quick kind of overview of my thoughts and why I have loved it so much before we get into kind of the reading vlog, so that you can have my opinion before I get into the spoilers, and if you want to read along with me, you can do so very easily. It's coming out on January 14th, and it already on Goodreads has a 4.07 star rating off of 282 ratings and 172 reviews. I feel like that is incredibly high for a debut. Like, this is her very first book, her very first attempt. Well, I don't know if I can say it's her first attempt at getting published, but it's her very first work in novel form. And with a 4-star review, that means probably all of the reviews are like 3 and up, which is nuts. Like, oh, she did such a good job. She did such a good job. So the book is kind of a look into the future as it has been affected by like social media and stuff, but it's a very well thought out and imaginative way of looking at the future. Like, I wouldn't have thought of creating something like The Spill, which is what happens in this book, where people end up dying because of social media. And of course, that's something that happens today. People can be really affected by what happens online, but this is like a widespread, horrible thing that happens. But it's written in such a way that it's very real while still being like sci-fi and creepy and like hopefully never gonna happen. The pacing of this book I thought was incredible. A couple of people I've seen in comments have said that it gets kind of long-winded and like maybe she could have cut it back, but I thought the wording and like the specific way she tells this story was something that needed to be like savored while I was reading it. Like, this is a book. It's kind of long. It's over 400 pages. My ARC is 427, but it really feels like a book that you could read in like a day or two because the storyline just wants to suck you in and like put you into the rapids. I really just wanted to like take my time and like be in this world for as long as possible. I guess worlds plural because we've got the 2015 and then the future. But oh, it's so well done. It is so well done. And I mean, I hope they go with something like this for the cover because I think this is so beautiful also. If I could, I would just read the whole book to you for this review because I think it is incredible. Absolutely incredible. There's certain things that I wish were kind of explained maybe a little bit sooner. That's kind of the only complaint that I have. You'll see when I get into the book vlogging portion of this video, if you watch that far, that I got kind of confused as to how technology had progressed so very quickly because it's not that far in the future. Like, we're still within like the same generation of people or like their children. So like, I guess the next, we're within like 2 generations. Everyone who's alive at the beginning of the book that we are following is still present in the future part of the book. But she explains that after, like it becomes clear after. But I wish it had kind of been a little bit more clear at the beginning because I was confused. That was the one thing that felt unrealistic to me, and then she fixed it. So I like, that's not a complaint anymore. Basically, this book is just so interesting. I think it's such a smart way of looking at this. It's just a smart way of imagining what could come, but it's not gone down the route of other books of the genre that are maybe that maybe take themselves slightly more seriously. Not that this one doesn't take itself seriously, but it doesn't take the technology of it as a plot point. It is so much more about the characters and their lives and their interactions with the people around them and their motivations and their relationships, and much less about how the world got to that point. If you like family dramas, like even if you don't like something like sci-fi or post-apocalyptic-y, like even if that's not your jam, I think you should still give this book a shot because the friendship between Orla and Floss, and then the family relationship between Marlowe and like her husband's family, her relationship with her parents, the crazy stuff that happens that complicates that afterwards. Like, those relationships are written so well and done in such a real way, even though they basically live in a reality TV show, and even though they live in the future. I felt so connected to Marlowe, and I felt like I really understood what she was going through in a very compelling way. So I would basically recommend this to everybody. I have been recommending this to everybody. It is so well written. It is engaging. It is fast-paced. It is just so interesting, and I just want everyone to read it so that I have people to talk about it with. So that's what I'm gonna say for this part of the review. I think everyone should go out and get this on the 14th. Go get it. And I mean, I put a lot of flags at the end, but I didn't actually tell you about this part. So if you want to find out what happens, you'll have to buy the actual book. But if you want to find out what happens in the first, like, 2/3, I was just babbling to my camera about everything that happens. So keep watching if you want to know more from this book and hear some of the quotes from the author. Oh, Megan Angelo is also so kind. I've been posting about this on Bookstagram at Random Librarian, by the way, and she has DM'd me. She's commented on all of my posts. She's just been very kind and, like, I think really appreciates the fact that people are enjoying what she put out there, which makes sense. I'm not saying that that's unusual. I just think it's very kind of her to reach out to, like I'm a smaller booktuber. I don't even have 1,500 followers or anything like that, and she's still just really happy that I liked her book. And that makes me want to support her even more. So yeah. If you want to see more of this video, it's coming in like 2 seconds. If you want to pause it and go get the book first, you can ignore me for 2 weeks and then, you know, come back and tell me what you thought. But in either case, this is Followers. I love Megan Angelo, and I'll see you guys soon. Okay, so I'm 2 more chapters in, and there is so much happening. So we get to know more about her roommate Florence, and she gets a call from her mom, and she's like, no, I'm doing my best. I'm like pursuing my dreams. And then after they hang up, she starts calling people and saying, like, did you listen to the CD I sent you? And getting basically like a bunch of no's. So she is kind of pursuing her dreams, but not really winning at doing so in the same way that Orla is. So then we get Orla, who goes into the office on a weekend. She sees her boss. Her boss is apparently always there. I take back what I said about possibly liking her boss. This is what we have. We have this interaction between them on the weekend. Hey, Ingrid said when she reached Orla's desk. Orla looked up. Ingrid's hair was even greasier than usual. Her boss has a 6-step lip routine involving liners and glosses and setting powders, but she seemed to only wash her hair roughly once a moon cycle. How was your weekend? She said like it was already over, and without waiting for an answer went on. Can you cover a red carpet tomorrow? It's this what's her name who's going to be there. Her publicist always bothering me, and we need to keep the publicist happy because she also reps that, you know, the YouTube girl with the harp. So that's Ingrid. She also like runs laser pointers and screens, and then everyone in the room is apparently waiting to quit their job and like be better than the other girls in the room and like have something else happen afterwards. And Megan writes about that in a really great way, because I think a lot of people just like are putting in the hours until they can follow their dreams. So it is still very relatable. And then we have the next chapter. So official chapter 2 is Marlowe in Constellation, California, which is the government-run thing. So we start to get more of a look into what this future is imagined as. So we have Marlowe, who wakes up and the first thing she does is like pop a pill. And her whole life is like filmed and followed, and she's got 11 million, 12 million followers kind of thing. Like, her whole life is filmed and scripted to the point where she has little like hoops sewn into her pajamas so that when she gets up, she can just hook her cover and like her quilt into her pajamas so she doesn't have a wardrobe malfunction. Then we have her go and she wants to wear vintage fashions from today, and people don't like it, so the next day her publishing team just put her publicist team puts her in a all green outfit so that they can green screen like weird patterns onto her and have people buy those. And coffee apparently was linked to depression, so she's not allowed to have that, but someone from her food team made it look like carrot juice, so she still has her latte, but people don't know that she's caffeinated. And she goes to a party to talk to one of her friends who hosts these like parties to like tell people to buy things, basically like a YouTube wrap up of like products that changed my life kind of thing. And every time that they're there, they have all of these followers and everyone kind of gets the same ad, even if they're not following the girl who hosts the parties. And then we have, at this party, we find out that one of their number, she has left. She has fled California. She has fled Constellation, and she is in Denver. And she was having like they talk about them like they're scripted. So she was having a family arc. Marlowe says, I thought she and Mike were doing the whole on the rocks thing this year, as if it was like scripted and it's part of her contract and everyone watching is like watching a TV show. She'll have comments scroll across her different like mirrors or screens, or I think there's like an implant in her head that helps her with like, you can Google things from your mind, but that also feels kind of big brothery that like people can track you. But you're not allowed to respond. She can't respond because it breaks the illusion. But Marlowe is apparently marketed to like the people who are, what did they call them? The broken ones? The troubled ones. So Marlowe herself, she is sponsored by this drug, which is, what's it called? Hysteril. And it's, I think, like a mood stabilizer or something like that. So if people are, everyone has a little like, I think it's like a tracker bracelet. So if someone is crying too much or eating too much or has like a spike in their heart rate if they're about to go through like gym class or something, then they'll market Marlowe to her saying like, she knows how you feel and she's doing X, so you should too. And that's why she is like so popular. So while she's thinking about this friend, Ida, who has left, she's like, well, I could never do that because Ida had way less followers than she did, way fewer followers. And she has this list, Marlowe has this list of things I have to myself, which is in the hour before 3 and 4 a.m. when the network broke for ad interruption, dressing rooms and doctor's office chambers and bathrooms in her home and all over town. Her favorite was a toilet stall in the vegan gastropub downtown. As a teenager, she used a nail file to scratch mean things about some of her ruder followers into its enamel walls. And now her smell, something small, but hers alone. It's because like, when she was drinking the coffee, she was like, oh, I have to breathe out slowly so that people can't smell like the fact that I have coffee breath and not carrot juice breath. And she's like, wait, they can't smell me. And like, that is her moment of freedom. So 2051 seems bananas. Then we get back to New York in 2015 and Orla is at the red carpet event, and the person that she was there to like see and to interact with wasn't actually the person making these sweaters for dogs where the money goes to support AIDS research. She was actually there to see a woman called Floss, who is actually Florence, but Floss is like her influencer personality. So they're there like not for very long because it's a weird event. And then Floss tries to get her in but can't. And they go back to their apartment building, go up to the roof. They go into like someone else's part of the roof, and he's just like staring at them the whole time that they're up there. But he lets Floss use the space, probably just because she's beautiful, and it's the same kind of like voyeuristic thing that we see in 2051. And Floss just has like a bottle of whiskey in one of the planters up there that she pulls out, and they start talking. And Floss is finally like, I know, like, I follow your blogging. I know what you did for this other girl who was like a nobody before you started writing about her. Could you do what you did for her for me? And that is like the start. That is the start of everything. That is the moment that leads us to 2051 and the future that Megan Angelo is creating for us. There's this one part where Orla's like, I don't need your help, like, whatever, I'll do it all by myself, like, I will create my own dreams, and like, there's nothing that I can get out of helping you. And Floss has this great monologue. She says, I've done the math. I've done the actual math. There are 8 million people here, and all of them want something as bad as I want what I want, as bad as you want what you want. We're not all going to get it. It's just not possible that all these people could have their dreams come true in the same time, the same place. It's not enough to be talented. It's not enough to work hard. You need to be disciplined, and you need to be ruthless. You have to do anything, everything, and you need to forget about doing the right thing. She released Orla with a little shove and put her hands on her hips. Leave that shit to people in the Midwest. The writing is so good already, and also like the storyline. Sometimes it's difficult to like bounce back and forth between times like this, but it's just building the tension so much in this book. I'm so excited. Like oh my gosh. I'm so excited to see where she takes this, because there's 427 pages of this, and we're already, I'm on the edge of my seat already, and it's just I know I'm like barely into this book at all, but I am already like ready to recommend it to everyone I know. So if you want to pause this now, go get your copy and like read along with me. That's the thing you can do. I'm gonna take a break, probably grab some food and film another video, but I'll be back in a bit. Bye. Alrighty, so it is my day off, so not only have I been reading today, but since you last saw me, I have gone to the grocery store and I have gone for a very rainy run. So part of this is just me being gross and sweaty, and part of it is that the world is gross and sweaty right now. But since we last chatted, chapter 4, Marlowe has some crazy stuff going on. She kind of tells us a little bit more about the future and like the whole setup. We have the dichotomy of like the writers and the talent that I guess originally gets set up by Floss and Orla. So that continues, and the town is like this gorgeous town, and it's very like idealized. The sunsets are like lit from below by lamps because they don't want to have to rely on nature. They have trees that have like fake and very fireproof leaves that then turn into blooms. So it's like leaves that in fall go like the brightest, most beautiful colors, and then in the spring turn into like pure white blossoms. And like we see this kind of like her reflection through her childhood, how when she was little she thought she just lived in the most beautiful place ever, but like as she's grown up she's seen how fake it all is. And there's like reference to an incident that made her a good fit for this mood stabilizing drug that she's on and like the face person for. So that's really interesting. I think I meant spokesperson, not face person, but it fits. So that's really interesting. And then we just get like more insight into who she was as a person. She didn't have any friends growing up, possibly as a result of this incident, and then parents and the sponsor like forced people basically to be her friends for the cameras, and because she was being sponsored, and she needed to appear happy and like well put together, I guess. That continues into her marriage, where she was like getting set up on all of these dates. Apparently 21 is the age where people in this same lifestyle that she is in this like influencer on steroids thing, are allowed to start dating. But like you get a message from the I keep wanting to say like game master, but whoever's kind of like planning it. So like the execs, I guess, the story people, the whoever, and you'll get like an image in your, I think it's like an implant in your brain. So I don't know how quickly technology is developing here, but like that seems really quick to go from 2015, where like there are text messages and social media stars as we know them, to 2051 where everyone has an implant in their head. Like that's the first time that I'm like, maybe not realistic, but like it could be. I don't know. We could take off in the next couple of years. It's the future. No one knows anything. So she gets the image of the guy. She goes on the dates. They're not interesting. She has the like constant feed of her followers being like, no, he's boring, like get out now. And while she's on one of these dates, she sees a guy across the bar who has like a whole bunch of friends, and as he like leaves to go get in line for the bathroom, he like says a joke over his shoulder and everyone laughs, and she's like, oh, I want to be part of that. So she goes to the bathroom and just like stands behind him being like, how do I talk to this boy? Oh no. And he turns to her and he's like, I know who you are. Like I forget how he says it. Oh, he says, I have a photo of you on my wall, and then gets like really blushy and says like, sorry, my cubicle wall, because he works for the company for the drug that she takes and that she is the spokesperson for, but she's never met him before. And then she basically gets like a ready-made group of friends, and that's the thing that she likes the most, that she has people that she can go and be with. And so she says that like she did her best to not be alone with her husband because a frightening truth was beginning to peel itself back like paint off a wall. She didn't like being married to Ellis. He was always on his device while she spoke, working on other things in his head as he stood there pretending to listen to her. The only time he paid attention to what she was saying was when she talked about her medication, the thing they had in common, the thing he was keeping tabs on. There were small things she hated about him too, and those were somehow worse, their symbolism metastasizing as the years passed. This one drove her insane, a permanent mental hangnail. He hid the snacks he liked best beneath their bed so that he didn't have to share them with her. He would rather risk eating unrefrigerated cheese, cashew cheddar he stashed in the dark next to his snowboard, than let her have some too. It all added up to an obvious correlation, one she had no business being surprised by. The man with the air of not caring actually didn't care. Because Ida was supposed to have the whole divorce plotline this like season of their lives, she starts hoping that like she'll be able to have that same plotline, and maybe as a result she'll get to like travel, which she has a no travel clause in her contract because the company is worried that her mood will not stay stable if she's not in her environment that she is used to. And instead, they give her a pregnancy plotline, so she's tied even more closely to Ellis and to the drug, which they have to start weaning her off of. She starts getting, like, this is the first time she's had emotions since she was a kid. She describes them, oh my god, such an amazing description. She said it's like having toys that she enjoyed as a child handed back to her as an adult, and suddenly she doesn't know what to do with them, and she just kind of like stands there with them in her hands. And so she's having these emotions that she doesn't know how to deal with, and people have to like cut away to ads to distract from the fact that she is like breaking down. But everyone else saw it coming, basically. Like, all of these people in the comments are saying, like, what I don't get is how she's so unhinged over this pregnancy thing, like it's some big surprise. Of course they were gonna give her one with Ellis on that deal or whatever, and her being 35 saw this twist coming a mile away. That was the thing about being the mouse in the maze, Marlowe thought as the flamingos finished trembling, because she was slapping flamingos in someone's front yard, went still. She was the only one surprised by where she ended up. It was so cool. And then we have the next part, so Orla's family, her parents come to visit her, and they have news about Danny, the boy that she wants to think well of her. And oh my god, this gave me so many high school like crazy vibes. Like I think I was actually pretty lucky in that I went to an all-girls school for high school, because I remember in middle school like pinning all my hopes on a guy like that, and it's so cringy looking back now and being like, oh no. But she doesn't have that oh no thing. She's still holding a torch for this guy, and it's the guy, she meets him on her first day of her freshman year, and they like lock eyes, and she's like gone forever. It's him. And then that like next day, or like right after that class, he meets her best friend, and then that next day he starts dating her best friend, and they've been dating ever since, and now they're married. And like it just goes through the whole thing, cutting off her friendship with the girl, Catherine, and then kind of becoming more and more isolated at college, which is upsetting. And then she's back in town. She was planning to live at home for a year, and then she sees Catherine when Catherine is out at a bar at her bachelorette party. And then Orla gets like roped in. She doesn't want to be there, and I don't think Catherine really wants her there either. And then Catherine drives home, makes Orla drive her home, gives her an invitation to the wedding, and Orla's like, oh my god, she's being so nice. Like, what? Like, I feel so guilty that we haven't kept in touch. And then she says, no, I know you're gonna be around, and like, I think you need to see this, that like, he's mine, not yours, kind of thing. And it is, goodness gracious. But then also, Orla's response to it makes me so upset as well, because her mom had told her, let Catherine have what Catherine has, her mother had said years ago. But wasn't that exactly what Orla had been doing? She was letting Catherine have Danny until Orla became the person he predicted. And that was who she would become. She resolved the person Danny thought she could be, not the one Catherine thought she was. She would be damned if she turned out to be someone Catherine could laugh at from down the road. She would be damned if she turned out to be, italics, around. Oh my god. This book is like, oh my god. I am having so much fun with this. Megan Angelo, how is this your first novel? I don't understand. Like, it's so polished, the writing is so good, the story is so unique, and I feel like it is very hard to come up with like a unique story in today's world, because everything feels like it has the same title, or it has like the same premise, or it has very clear indications of what inspired it. And this one, I'm just sitting here like, I mean, it's clearly inspired by like influencer culture and maybe like shows like Big Brother and things, but it's just, oh, it's so good. It's so good. Okay, I still have like 3/4 left, but maybe I'll stop doing quite so many check-ins, because this was just my day off, so I was able to do more than I will be able to do during the week. Wow, okay. Good talk. Bye. Y'all, this book. Okay, so it's been like a week. I haven't gotten as much reading done as I would like, but I think I'm still on track to finish this before its pub date, so that way you can actually do a read along with me once you get your copy on January 14th, because you're going to want to get it on the day that it launches. So, there's been so much that happened. So, starting with chapter 6, I think is where we left off, we have so much that we're learning. We find out that Floss is in this future thing. So Floss is in the village. Floss is the mom of Marlowe. So we have different like visions of Floss. So like now she's kind of like a Real Housewife kind of character, but like one of the crazy ones that is great for ratings and like starts fights and gets distracted by how beautiful she is in mirrors. And then we have more information about how the spill, which is like what caused people to stop using phones and start using the like devices that are implanted into them. And we get this information about Floss. So like, by contrast, Floss was lucky, especially considering how much she had used old phones with screens when she was younger. Floss's doctor had showed Marlowe once on a chart with bars that ran from pale pink to red where her mother's mind should have fallen, the darkest part of the graph. But Floss's fogs were short and relatively mild, marked by glazed eyes and time travel. Anyone who didn't know better might think she was only high or deeply nostalgic. It's like smoking, if you've ever heard of that, the doctor said. We can usually predict the damage by how much someone used screens, but there are exceptions. Your mother's lucky for now. So there are these like fogs that people go into, and they have varying degrees of intensity, I guess. And Bridget, the husband's mom, and her husband have like a room in their house that is padded walls and like that's where they go when they go into their fog, so that no one can see them and like they don't hurt themselves. But it seems very intense. Then we find out that Marlowe's dad is in a facility for people experiencing like really big fogs, and there's a lot of people from Constellation there, so it's a big deal, but we don't get like the full story just yet. Apparently fog isn't the worst part of the spill. Like people died in the spill and I don't know why yet, but fog is like the after effect of the spill, and doctors were at first thinking that it was just kind of like a reaction, like a shock, a kind of PTSD, but instead it's like its own thing that is marked by forgetfulness and kind of checking out. Oh, this was really cool. So it gives you Marlowe's first time using the device. So the like sample prompts that it gives her is, tell me where to find delivery pizza, tell me the current weather conditions at the Great Wall of China, show me a photo of the president in college. And then it gives a staticky nudge at her skin and the sudden bubbling up of the very first answer in her brain. Flour Crust Express, 2.1 miles. Am I hungry? Would I like to place an order? Then the instant of doubt. Her brain knew that already, didn't it? It was where she got pizza all the time. But after that came the swoon of her next thought, natural as her own name. It is currently 11 degrees Celsius at the Great Wall of China. And finally, materializing on a backdrop in her head she hadn't known existed, the 69-year-old president many decades earlier. She stood jauntily on the Princeton quad, fingers curled into the belt loop of her high-waisted blue jeans, her hair rounded in a neat, soft afro. Would I like to see more? It's so weird, Marlowe had said to Floss, who was watching her daughter anxiously as if Marlowe had swallowed a party drug. It's calling me I, or it's saying me. A week later, there was nothing strange about it. Gone was the line between who she had been before and who she was now, what she had known before and what she knew now, which was, for all intents and purposes, everything. I think that is so insidious, the fact that it speaks to her in her own voice and like in the first person. And that's the thing, like, this is kind of weird, but I've had this thought for a while that like if we were to kind of slowly inch our way towards becoming robot people and cyborgs and like sci-fi stuff, that like kiddos would be the first ones to kind of be targeted, because what parent would let their child be hobbled by the fact that everyone else in their class suddenly knows everything and their child is going to fail every test and like be so left out and have no opportunities when compared to other people who suddenly have all of this access and all of this information at their fingertips. So I think this is kind of showcasing that, and I'm sure that parents got it at the same time as the kids, but that's just like my thoughts on it, and I think it is crazy. We also get more information about how babies are made in this place. So the children for stars of Constellation are done with a very expensive process where you can kind of edit the genes that you want your child to have and make them perfect. And the way that this works is that when they're like teens or younger, even like middle school, all of the girls, like their eggs get, I think they use the word reaped. And we have a scene from when she had gotten her reaping. Her mother had forgotten, had like double booked herself, but didn't want to tell her dad that like she was just leaving her with Amadou, who's her driver / bodyguard. And she sends her text messages. How are you, honey? Do you have enough grape popsicles? I told Amadou to be sure he got them. Were you surprised when you saw the grape popsicles? I bet you thought I forgot. I would never forget my girl's grape popsicles. I said, Amadou, this is very important. Marlowe had not answered. This was the essence of Floss. Her not mother of the year, but mother once a year, working remotely and wanting the same medal. The intergenerational moments and like play in this book are so well done, because I feel like that is something that is, I mean, it's seen in today's world as well. Like parents have very different life experiences than kids because the world has changed so much in the onset of different types of electronics and social media and things like that. It's just like constantly evolving and at a speed that like I can barely understand. And this is almost that in reverse, but we still get like the intergenerational relationships and how they can be kind of difficult and complicated. So we get family relationships, and then we get Marlowe, who has a really hard time picturing like why Twitter was a thing, like why people used smartphones. She doesn't really understand the technology that we deal with today. And I just think it's really well done. And the complications between like mother and daughter. And then we get also like a scene in this with Marlowe and her dad. She like breaks down and finally texts him. I can't remember his name right now, but she calls him and she's just like, I'm in pain, like what do I do? And he comes, he and Floss are having problems with this time, so he's literally just there for her. And like clearly Marlowe and her dad have a way less complicated relationship than Marlowe and her mom do. She loves him. She has this really touching moment where he takes care of her and like walks around the house touching things that are no longer his, and like they have this like bonding moment. And then we have another one where she has this memory in her head of learning to ride a bike, and her dad like tied a rope around her so he could run with her while she was biking, and she kept looking back over her shoulder to watch him instead of watch where she was going. And she just has these like kind of perfect rose-tinged images of her dad that she doesn't really ever have with her mom. We also have like more going on with her being off of her mood stabilizers, and I understand like what's going on here, and I think it's even like a valid representation of someone coming off of mood stabilizers, possibly ones that they haven't needed for most of their life, because it is this government funded, also insidious is the word I'm going to use for this, and she is sponsored to be on this drug, that I think that's why Megan Angelo is really pushing this, is like, no, like the drugs were bad, her coming off of them is a good thing. But I think it could be kind of irresponsible, because I know so many people whose lives have been vastly improved and like helped by different kinds of medications. I don't know. I think it's a hard line to walk, and I hope that she's doing it in the right way. I don't know how to comment on it, but that's just a thought there. For her the baby reveal, they have a party before they, I think, insert the baby into Marlowe so that the baby can grow. She had picked this dress, and now that she's off the drugs, she realizes that she absolutely hates it. But then her mom goes into a fog, so she like can't pick out a different dress, and she's like, whatever, this is the dress, I guess I'll just wear it. And she decides to run away, basically, from her life and from everything that's going on. So she takes off the device and leaves it in the kitchen so people will think that she's just there. And she goes out into her car and gets in and like slaps the dress down around her. And then she says this: she figured out as she cleared the mess from her vision why she didn't like the gown anymore. It wasn't just that she had seen the color wrong, that the yellow screamed more loudly now than it had when she chose it. It was that she didn't like yellow at all, she realized. She'd always thought it was her favorite color. But that was a trick of the pills. It was just that, before she saw everything clearly, it was the brightest thing. Okay, we have Aston. Okay. Aston is Floss's husband in the future. He is her boyfriend now. There's a very complicated way that they get to be in a relationship, but now people want their relationship, so they are on a reality TV show, and it's kind of like a Three's Company thing. They post the first episode. Orla didn't really know she was going to be in the episode. She thought she was going to be like off to the side. They had her in the living room. She was just like doing her own thing. And when they aired the first episode, all of Orla's like eye rolls and everything had been like the focus of every shot. So she becomes like everyone's favorite. And then Floss, who's used to being the center of attention, does not like that. So Orla overhears a conversation between Floss, the team that's doing it, and Aston. She said, "That's not what I mean." Orla heard the deliberate click of Floss's heels on the wood, moving closer to the door. "I mean, we all know who I'm supposed to be, and we all know who she's supposed to be, right?" All of them went around echoing, "Right." Except for Aston, who made a lip trumpet sound and said, "What? I'm not following this toxic convo. Who's Orla supposed to be now?" There was silence. Orla could picture them waiting on the talent. "You know," Floss said finally, "a secondary character." Ugh. Their friendship is bananas. So we have Aston, who I'm actually starting to really like. He has a very strange origin story that I'm just not going to explain. Like, if you want to read it, read it. It's just bananas is the other word I have to use for that. So, but now that he's in here, he also has a very different, like, front-facing persona versus his persona when it's just the three of them at the house. And he's, like, pretty nice to Orla. He jokes with her. He doesn't call her a secondary character. He calls out toxicity when it is in front of him. And he just seems kind of like a goofy kid who's doing his best with what he was given. Floss, meanwhile, another scene in their, like, friendship. Floss takes Orla out to a bar. People come up to them and, like, want pictures. And Floss is, like, so savvy with this that, like, she has Orla take the pictures and won't let Orla be in the pictures. So people are like, where's your bitchy roommate? And Orla's just sitting there like, I am right here. I am taking your picture. But then she forgets how annoyed she is with Floss because Floss grabs her hand in the middle of a bar and, like, pulls her through. And that apparently is, like, the peak of friendship to Orla. As this goes along, here's the thing. I identify so strongly with Orla that she's starting to annoy me. Because, like, I don't know if I would make different decisions on the one that she's making, but at the same time, I'm just sitting here like, you say you want to write a book, please just do that instead. Like, you're freaking me out so bad. And, like, I know what's coming. And I think she gets, like, murdered by Floss at some point. And, like, that's a thing that happens. And, anyways, she gets pulled through the bar. They go into a karaoke room, and Floss has been trying to be a singer before this whole thing blew up. And Orla's sitting there being like, I want to yell at her. I want to tell her to, like, stop seeing me as a secondary character, that, like, I'm the reason that she's famous, kind of thing. And then Floss began to sing, and Orla's thoughts fell apart. Floss's voice, the real one, the one she abandoned so often in a pursuit of something put on, was phenomenal. It was deep and ribbed and searingly on-pitched, demolishing notes out of standard human reach. Floss pushed her hair into a knot on top of her head carelessly, as if she was fed up with it keeping her from something. Orla was thinking of Floss's faceless mother, doubting her daughter's talents when she blurted, "You're so good, Floss, God. Wouldn't you have rather been a singer than a—" Floss waited for her to finish and smiled sadly when she didn't. "I tried to be a singer at first, but how do you be a singer? It's not like what we're doing, there's no formula." She shrugged. "Maybe if the show gets big enough, they'll let me do a single." "You could have tried harder," Orla said. "You still could. We could forget the other stuff." The song was over. Floss put down the microphone and picked up her drink. She stuck the little red straw in the corner of her mouth. "I don't want to," she said. "It just isn't a practical dream." The fact that social media stardom is more practical and easier to achieve than someone with genuine talents, I think is sadly probably true, but also just very stark and very much shows what is going on with this book. Then we have, this was fun because it was where Orla's mom comes to visit her and they are having a moment, and this is where the title comes in, which is always fun to discover when this happens. So we get Orla's mom, Gail, who says, "I'm going to tell you the same thing I've been telling you since you were 10 years old, Orla." She said quietly, like she was trying not to embarrass her. "It's not good to be a follower." There it is. And also, very true. They have a whole, like, what you're doing isn't actually real. Like, what you're doing isn't a job. Like, this is not, what you're doing isn't even really that interesting. It's just happening. And that is very harsh. Very harsh. And then at the end of this chapter, chapter 9, we have Danny who shows up again. We also, earlier in the Marlowe chapters, found out that Marlowe's dad, who she loves so much, Aston, I don't know why his name doesn't stay in my head. Yeah, Aston. So she goes to visit Aston in the place where he's kept. And then on the day of her, like, baby face reveal thing that they do, and while she's wearing the yellow dress, she gets a ping from the place that is making the baby saying like, something might be wrong, we need you to come here. And she runs over and bumps into Grace, who is one of the kids who was there when she had her meltdown that we still don't know what really happened there. Part of Marlowe's contract has been not to contact any of the kids who were there when she broke down. So Grace is like, I think her only friend really that she ever had and like made herself. And this is the first time we've seen Grace and the first time that she's seen Grace in like 10 years maybe. And Grace works there and she's like, yeah, I have something really important to tell you, and like pulls her aside and takes her into a place where there are no cameras. And she says, I don't know if they've been saving this for like a big reveal or something, or if they're just like never going to tell you. But when you gave us your swabs and your DNA, Aston's DNA is not part of yours. And she had wanted her child to look just like her dad. Like that was the plan. And suddenly like she's finding out that he's not her biological dad and no one knows who her biological dad is. And like birth certificates aren't really a thing anymore, so she doesn't even know how to find out who it is. And Grace hands her a bit of paper, and it's a bit of wallpaper from her apartment because there's like no paper ever anymore, because why would you need it when you can just send a thought directly to someone? But Grace is there like, I don't want the network to know, and like we're off camera right now, so like that's what's going on. And it's the like hospital in New York where Marlowe was born. So I think we're like approaching the point where she like at the beginning of the book where she goes into the apartment that I'm assuming is Marlowe and Orla's apartment. But I have a prediction, and I feel like anyone who reads this might get the same prediction. Now that Danny has showed up, and Danny and his wife are divorced now, I think that Floss is going to steal Danny from Orla again, and that Orla never gets what she wants ever. And it's going to be a very like backstabby, very manipulative moment. And I think that's what's going on. I think it's going to be behind the cameras kind of thing. And that's why Aston's DNA doesn't appear in Marlowe's body. But that's my prediction. I will let you know if I'm correct. And I think we're like almost halfway through the book at this point. The pacing on this is so good, like so good. I'm dying to just keep going. I'm also reading like, I think like 5 books that I'm thinking are gonna be like 5-star reads for me. Like, I feel like every book that I've started this month has been just absolutely amazing. So that's really exciting, but it means that I am progressing pretty slowly. Here we are. Okay. That's my update for now. See you in a bit. Alrighty, so I am staying at a friend's and doing New Year's in New York, and this camera is about to die, so the rest of this video might be on my phone. But quick update about this guy. There is so much going on. I was reading it in the bus on the way up after I was done sleeping. Let's see. So I think last time we saw each other, Danny had just arrived in New York. Or, sorry. Then we go back to Marlowe, and we start seeing her in New York for the first time. And this actually that was really interesting. So it's also funny because I'm in New York right now, but not much about the like real world outside of Constellation has changed. Instead of smartphones, people have their devices implanted into their bodies or whatever, but it's still just like a lot of people. It's still people doing the jobs that we see like bots doing in Constellation. So I was like actually kind of pleasantly surprised by that, because it doesn't seem like everything has gone to like the next level within this short time period between the 2 storylines that we're getting. But the outside is still a little bit like the world we have today. Then Marlowe like meets a follower, and she doesn't really know how to interact with people because she's never had to. Oh, she says on page 178, Marlowe supposed her first impression of Manhattan was an unoriginal one. It was so full of people, living ones specifically. She sat in her stalled cab, appalled. Real people were doing all the bot work. There was a policeman directing traffic in the midst of a chaotic intersection. There was a woman coaxing trash into a dustpan with a broom. Marlowe jumped when a furry blue mascot, she'd been sure that at least this was animatronic, removed his own torso to reveal a sweating man. So her cab doesn't have a driver. Everything else is like loud and crazy, but like within there, she's quiet and she's not on, I guess, for the first time. And they drive through Times Square-ish, I'm assuming, and there's all these ads with all of these other people, and she sees like Ida, her friend, leaves her family is like one of the big things. She sees another of her friends, and then she sees her own Historyl ad, and then all of a sudden everything goes away, and like everyone's like what? And then they launch the hunt for Marlowe. So everything goes quiet, and then came the banners rippling across Marlowe's software-smoothed forehead in every image. Wanted, Marlowe clip. A voice from somewhere boomed above the gentle hum of the cab engines. Constellation fans, it cried, female and ecstatic. This is a special day. It's time for a scavenger hunt. Our own Marlowe clip is out there somewhere in Manhattan, waiting for you to find her. Spot her and you'll win serious prizes. Go, stargazers, go. Marlowe pressed her back into the seat. She slid downward. Jacqueline was right. The hunts were real. Then she finds this memorial to people who died in the spill, which we still don't have all the information for it. I really want to know what happens. And she makes her way onto the World Wide Web in order to start looking into her family and the... Nope. So the memorial of the spill is the address of the hospital where she was born. So she can't find her records that way, so she tries to go onto the web and find more about who her dad could be, more about who she is, really. And she somehow finds Orla, but when she goes to actually search for Orla, she gets a 404 error, which I think is really interesting. So I'm like, wait, what? Why does, So Orla definitely has something to do with the spill, which means Floss has something to do with the spill. And I'm really excited. And then we go back to New York and we start seeing Danny, and Danny is like from jump using her. So we get this scene where she takes him out to a drink somewhere where she'll be recognized so that he can see like, oh look, she's really successful. They talk about his divorce and he says, "You have no idea how many times I wanted to come and find you to tell you." His face colored and he waved the train of thought away like he thought he was wasting her time. Then he grinned, the grin she remembered from when they were 15. "I always thought you and me could take over the world." If she had been on her third drink or either further into her second, Orla might not have felt the sudden sting of intuition. Like when he had called her a star at the barricade, this line sounded too planned. But she was not on her first drink either, so she could push the thought away. She buried the instinct beneath what she wanted. And then they like go through kind of their relationship. He's like what she imagined, but also not really. Floss is like, there's an interesting moment where they're talking about their friendship because Orla is starting to realize things about like Floss being performative in their friendship. So Floss says like, "Oh, must you make my best friend be lame every night?" And she's like whining at Danny, being like, "What the hell, dude?" And says Floss's attitude toward Danny, Orla sensed, was one of patient disdain, as if Orla had started wearing a tacky hat everywhere and Floss could only wait for her to outgrow it. If Orla wasn't careful, she could feel herself feeling flattered by this show of possessiveness. She had to remind herself that that was what it was, a show. She didn't doubt that she and Floss were best friends, but that only meant she knew Floss very well enough to realize that, to Floss, friendship was theater. Floss shrieked with joy when Orla entered her room and captioned pictures of the two of them with venomous affection. "My best friend is hotter than yours." The edge of jealousy towards Danny was another of these pantomimes, the kind that might have seemed genuine to the people in the cheap seats. But Orla, in the front row, saw them for just what they were, distractions sequined over the truth. Floss might have believed she loved Orla, but Orla knew Floss was only for Floss. She knew that Floss was the kind of selfish friend most women could only keep one of, the one they tried hard to love but had to hang up on twice a year, the one they told the rest of their friends about in sentences that always began, "You know I love her, but..." Orla felt aware that it was risky having this kind of friend as her only one, with no cushion of other contacts to help metabolize the crazy. But she had lived the alternative too. She knew it was better than having no one. Which is just like, wow. So also her family and like people from home were kind of worried about her and Danny's relationship and finding it kind of weird that not only is Orla sort of famous, she's dragging this guy who like works in a freezer factory with her, which true. And then one day after they've like lazed around all day, Danny breaks out a PowerPoint about merchandising for Floss, and it's basically like why he was there in the whole, like he's been using Orla the whole time, and like she knew it, but she didn't really know it. And Orla takes him out to get him like better dressed, to make him fit in more with the crew that gets to be on camera. And Floss gets kind of pissed at him and says, all of this she snapped as a gift from Orla. You're in our world as her +1, don't forget that. Ignore her, Orla ordered him. She's jealous. And there it was, crushing her. Danny's face didn't look like it should. He wasn't offended or embarrassed. She could swear that he almost looked hopeful. All of a sudden, she knew exactly what he thought she meant. The thing she had tried to keep from knowing, he's using you to get to her, came tunneling up, unstoppable. Not jealous of me for being with you, she said, correcting his mistake. Jealous of you for being with me. She used to have me all to herself. Floss was smirking. She had seen Danny's face too. So we have all of these like interesting things going on in their friendship, especially because like I thought that Danny was gonna end up being Marlowe's dad. So I'm like really interested to see how that turns out. And then we have this other thing where Orla has this realization that they've been living her fantasy and they've run out of things for her to do with Danny. And of course the reality is different from what she actually fantasized about, but she says like, she starts thinking like, oh, didn't I kind of set this up? Didn't I kind of make him think he could be better than he was? She says, hadn't she all those years ago handed him a brainy book to read? Hadn't she believed he was better than he realized and made him feel that way? Then he had come here and called her bluff, tried to grow into his potential right in front of her, and Orla had shown him the limits of what she really thought of him. He was special and smart, of course. He was better than Mifflin, but not as special and smart and better as she was. So, God, there's just, there's so many gems in this book. I'm so excited. Okay. Then we get back to Marlowe. She's still trying to search the web, and then she looks up and she sees Honey Mitchell, who I don't think we've met yet, but who was they explain who she is in this chapter, who was key in the incident that we've heard of a couple times of how Marlowe was chosen to be on Histero. And she's the one who founded this internet archive. After she sees that image, people start realizing where she is, and a whole like crowd of people starts chasing her, and she jumps into a cab and it asks for an address, and she can't think of one, and then she just throws out the one address that she found on the web, which is Floss and Orla's old apartment. So she starts heading there. And we have all of these, this kind of like backstory talking about the government wanted to create the internet, but because everyone knew now that the internet was like only set up to track them and only set up to like figure out what they liked, they weren't using it the way that they had been. There was no kind of like social sharing. They tried to set up alternatives to social media, but no one wanted to use it because again, it is just for tracking them. And then part of getting people interested in it again is this exchange program that they set up where kids from elsewhere would get sent to Constellation. So Honey was one of the visiting students, and she's kind of off the rails. She is like very, very beautiful apparently, and she didn't want anything to do with the girls who were popular at school. She wanted to be in with the kids who were popular with the like masses. So she inserts herself into Marlowe and Grace's friendship and basically like takes over as Grace's best friend, and Marlowe starts feeling really left out. She lies about having another friend who lives outside of Constellation so that she doesn't have to hang out with them. And then Honey kind of starts this whole thing where she's like, after dance, she's like, well, let's go visit the friend then, since she exists. And like everyone knows that she doesn't, but she's being a jerk. And they get in the car, they like steal one of her dad's cars, Marlowe's dad's, and start making their way to the beach. Then there's like this whole scene where Marlowe tries taking over the wheel, but she doesn't know how to drive, so Honey has the boys that are with them take off their belts and like tie her up, which is terrifying, and apparently none of that got caught on camera, and the only thing that gets caught on camera is Marlowe lashing out against Honey. So that gets live streamed, is that like Marlowe is defenseless, she's tied up, she's kind of being comforted by Grace in the backseat, who's just being like, just admit that you lied, just admit that you lied, and she's there like, what, I didn't do anything, like, I'm just gonna stay quiet, I'm just gonna like, people will see that I'm tied up because cameras are everywhere, and like that's her whole life. And they like drive her dad's car like into the water, and she feels like they all feel like they're kind of drowning, even though the rest of them like aren't really. And apparently there are like cop robots that come, and Honey's never seen them before, so she starts freaking out and like jumps into the back and like crowds into Marlowe, and Marlowe's like, get off me, like I'm in this position because of you. But no one can see her hands or her feet where she's bound, and she does the only thing that she can do, which is she bites Honey to get her off of her. And when she pulls away, like apparently a huge piece of Honey's cheek comes with her. And so Honey has this huge scar on her face, and it's from Marlowe. And Marlowe says like, what, who in this day and age has a scar, like unless they want it for some reason. And yeah, it's bananas. Anyways, that's where I ended up. I ended up with her in a conference room with her mom. She's thinking like, my mom won't let them like put me on this. My mom won't let them use my veins as a way of marketing to people. And she says, we feel lucky that you would even consider Marlowe for such an opportunity, her mother said, covering Marlowe's hand in hers. I think it sounds amazing. And then it goes to the next chapter. It's like, oh no. So then we also have this one line that she says, when she's in the car alone and everyone else is out on the beach, and she says, so this is what it was like, she thought, to feel abandoned. Marlowe loved her parents, she did. She loved her father with ease and loved her mother with effort, but from a young age, perhaps from the first time she had seen how disappointed they looked when she stole out of bed and slipped into their parties, she had understood that both of them, as parents, topped out at half functioning. Oh god, it's just every chapter is chock full of like little nuggets of just, there's so much going on. Okay. That's up to chapter 13 then. There's so much going on. It should be really interesting to see how it all... That's where I am. I think I'm like just a little bit past halfway. How it all wraps up. I'm really excited to see. So, got an update in before my camera dies. That's pretty good. Bye guys. See you soon. Alright, so here's the thing. As you might have noticed from the first part of this and how many freaking flags I have on this, I basically just want to read the whole book to you. That's how good it is. Up until what, chapter... Where did I leave off? Like chapter 15? 15. That's already like so much has happened. She introduces new plot points that get satisfyingly brought together in the last third of the book. I'm just, honestly, I'm in awe. I want everyone to read this, and I'm not going to tell you what happens after this because it's so good, and I just want everyone to read it so that I have buddies to talk about it with. Also, I think that I'm not supposed to quote from this because it's an advanced reader copy. Okay, it doesn't say don't read from it. It just says they've been set for this edition only and do not reflect the type, design, or layout to be used in the final edition. So, like, maybe they're fine with the fact that I've been quoting it, but maybe I shouldn't just yet tell you what happens in the last third of the book. Ugh. So I finished this in New York, but my camera was very dead, and I've just not stopped thinking about it since. It's so good. Like, what else can I say? I was kind of nervous when I read the back, because I think these kind of views of the future, especially if they pull from social media, can sometimes be a little preachy. Just my own thoughts. But this is done in a way that A, feels really believable, but B, doesn't feel like it's trying to be like, social media bad, like living without everything good. Like, you could maybe read it like that at the end, but I didn't. I just think it's just, that's not really like what the story is about as much as like that's the framing device. The story is more about the characters and like their storylines that get so messy and like run towards each other. And then they bring in and out all of these different characters that you see and get to know and like see how they affect the different characters and like, oh, so good. And I loved the endings for each individual character. I thought that they were kind of tied up with a bow, not gonna lie, but not in a bad way, in a way that makes me really happy. They deserved that. They went through a lot in this book. So, yeah, all I have to say is I really want you to go out and read this. So that's my review for Followers by Megan Angelo. I really hope you'll give me your thoughts once you've read this, because I highly recommend that you do. And if you want to come talk to me on Bookstagram as well, I'm at Random Librarian over there. Or you can just head to the comments down below. In either case, I will see you guys in another video pretty soon, and I hope you're having a great start to 2020. Bye guys.